Africa before colonization. Episode 1. The Lion of Mali, the untold origin of the Golden Empire.
History is written by the victors, but in West Africa it is sung by the griots. They tell of a time when the savannah bled under the shadow of a sorcerer. Imagine a king who sat on a throne draped in human skin, a king who believed he was a god because no blade could pierce him. This was Soumaoro Kante, the blacksmith king of the Soso. He had crushed the remnants of the old Ghana Empire, and now he turned his sights on the Mandinka people. But the legends say that Soumaoro's downfall wouldn't come from a mighty general or a rival god. It would come from a boy who couldn't even stand on his 2 feet, a boy the world had discarded. This is not a fairy tale. This is the birth of the Mali Empire. This is the rise of the Lion King, Sundiata Keita. In the early 12th century, the Mandinka kingdom was small, fragmented and vulnerable. Its king, Magan Konfata, received a strange prophecy that if he married an ugly woman, their son would become the greatest emperor in history. Enter Sogolon. She was called the Buffalo Woman, hunched, fierce and possessed of powerful spirits. The king married her and Sundiata was born. But there was a problem. The prophecy seemed like a cruel joke. Sundiata was born paralyzed in his legs. While other princes learned to hunt and ride, Sundiata spent his days in the dust, mocked by his half-brother and his father's other wives. When the king died, the prophecy felt like a lie. Sundiata's half-brother seized the throne and turned his mother's life into a living hell. One day, the insults went too far. Sogolon was publicly humiliated for having a useless son. That was the spark. Legends say Sundiata asked the royal blacksmiths to forge a massive iron rod. He grabbed it, his knuckles turning white, his muscles screaming. With a roar that shook the village, he hauled his body upright. The iron rod bent into the shape of a bow under his strength. Sundiata Keita was no longer crawling. The lion had stood up. But strength brings enemies. To save his life, Sundiata and his mother fled into exile. For years, they wandered from kingdom to kingdom, from the edge of the Sahara to the deep forests. While Sundiata was traveling, he wasn't just surviving, he was studying. He learned the art of war from the best generals. He learned diplomacy by speaking with foreign kings. He was a scholar in exile, building a network of allies that would one day change the world. Meanwhile, back home, darkness had arrived. Soumaoro Kante, the sorcerer king, had finally conquered the Mandinka heartland. Soumaoro was the stuff of nightmares. Oral tradition tells us he possessed a balafon, a magical xylophone, guarded by a giant snake. He was a master of the elements. He demanded heavy tributes and took the daughters of his subjects by force. The Mandinka people were broken. They looked at the empty throne and remembered the boy who had bent the iron rod. They sent messengers across the savannah, carrying traditional Mandinka herbs and vegetables as a signal. They were searching for their lost king. They found him in the kingdom of Mema. Sundiata didn't hesitate. He returned not as a refugee, but as a commander. He called upon the coalition of the oppressed, a massive alliance of Mandinka chiefdoms who were tired of living in fear. The year is approximately 1235, the place, the plains of Kirina. On one side, the Soso army, vast, disciplined, and led by a man they believed was immortal. On the other, Sundiata's rebels. The battle was a chaos of iron and dust, but there was a catch. No matter how many Soso soldiers Sundiata killed, he couldn't get to Soumaoro. The sorcerer king seemed protected by an invisible shield. But Sundiata had a secret weapon. His sister, Nana Triban, had been a prisoner in Sumaoro's court. She had played the part of the submissive wife, whispering flattery until the sorcerer revealed his one weakness, his tana, his taboo. His power could be broken by only one thing, the spur of a white cock. Sundiata tipped his arrow with that very spur. He drew his bow, the same bow he had bent as a child, and let it fly. The arrow grazed Sumaoro's shoulder. It wasn't a lethal wound, but the magic was gone. Sumaoro looked at his blood and realized he was mortal. The invincible king turned and fled into the mountains of Kulikoro. He was never seen again. With the sorcerer gone, the fragmented tribes didn't go back to their old ways. They stayed. They gathered at the field of Kurukan Fuga, and they crowned Sundiata as Mansa, the king of kings. But this is where Sundiata proves he was more than just a warrior. He was a visionary. He didn't rule by fear, he ruled by law. He established the Manden Charter, one of the oldest oral constitutions in human history. Listen to what this 12th century document decreed. It spoke of social peace and the sanctity of human life. It gave women a voice in the government. It even established environmental rules for the Niger River. Sundiata moved the capital to Niani and took control of the two most important things in the world at that time, salt and gold. By securing the trade routes from the Sahara to the forests, he turned Mali into the economic heartbeat of the world. Sundiata Keita passed away around 1255, but the fire he started burned for centuries. He laid the foundation for an empire that would eventually produce Mansa Musa, a man so wealthy he gave away enough gold to collapse the Egyptian economy. Because of Sundiata, cities like Timbuktu became global centers of science, astronomy, and Islamic learning. We often look to the West or the East for stories of great conquerors, but in the heart of Africa, a crippled boy rose to become a lion. He didn't just build an empire of gold, he built an empire of justice and human rights that predates the Magna Carta. The next time you hear a story about a lion king, remember the name Sundiata Keita, the man who stood up when the world told him to stay down.